Welcome to Vacation Station, hosted by Lisa and Nancy, editors of BigBlendMagazines.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Big Blend Radio's Parks and Travel Show. We're excited to welcome back travel writer, author, novelist Linda Ballou back to the show. And she's joining us to talk about her adventures this year on Kauai, which is the oldest island in the Hawaiian chain. Her story is up on nationalparktraveling.com. And you know what? All the links are in the show notes. So whether you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook or listening out on Spotify or Apple or Google or wherever you're listening, the show notes are there. I also encourage you to go to her website, lostangeladventures.com, because she's got an awesome book series. It's kind of like travel memoirs, talking about her adventures in California and around the world and Alaska. I mean, everywhere. So welcome back. How are you, Linda?
I'm fabulous, Lisa.
Hey,
I'm really good. I just came home from paradise, so I'm in good shape.
that's good. And sadly, as we're talking, we're all seeing what's going on with Maui, and so sad about Lahaina. And, just our hearts are with everyone going through that, those wildfires. And it's one of those places you would never expect to see. Well, you live in Southern California. We've been through fires. You know about fires.
Right.
You've been traveling Oregon. You were Australia. I mean, we all know about this, like detours, but for travelers, it can be scary. But I think our hearts are really with the people of the land.
Right. Hawaii is no stranger to natural disasters.
No kidding. Yeah, volcanoes.
The Big Island is always having growing pains, and in the last year, they almost took out the highway that goes on the Gold Coast, which have been very tragic, but it didn't. But it did take out a big area of Puna and the other big flows. So there have been a lot of, and of course, the islands are subject to tsunamis, if you have an earthquake under the ocean. And in 1992 on Kauai, there was Aniki, the hurricane, which took out, reconfigured the South Shore totally. So I'm not making light of it. I'm just saying that the people of the islands are resilient. And, we've seen a coming together, not just of the island people supporting one another, but from all over the world. In the United States. Now, I heard Zuckerman gave $100 million, but I don't know if that's true. But
and then I also heard Bezos do the same thing. So I think if all these rich dudes up there should start shelling it out, it's about time. But they also have. I know that Zuckerberg lives there too, has property there.
He has huge land there. Right.
Yeah. So I think this is the thing, as visitors to these places that created memories for us. We've got to support them in any way we can. I also just say where we donate and do things to make sure that they're accredited places that you're giving money to.
Right. Well, there are all sorts of ways to be giving, and there has been a lot of giving, and I think that Lahaina will recover. We don't know in what way and how it's going to shape and come back, but it will.
Well, you lived in Hawaii, so this is something, also I know from your heart, and Kauai. So this going back to Kauai was kind of like a going back, in time for you and seeing did things change?
Right.
And how did your heart feel going back? Let's go there.
It was a very tender journey for me. And it was a real meander down memory lane. And so many things have changed. For instance, the South Shore, where Aniki did reconfigure the coastline altogether. I mean, that was all completely different from what I remembered when I lived on the islands in 1978. And Poipu Beach, which was my favorite beach to swim, and it was a deep azure pool at the time when I was there. And now it's an expansive, wide, sweep of sand, and it's very beautiful, but it's shallow. It's good. It's good for snorkeling, but it's not great for swimming. I mean, the whole thing has changed. The other thing that they did on the South Shore that was all new, which I really, really, really enjoyed, was a coastal trail from Poipu area towards Lahui. Well, that whole coastline was inaccessible when I was there.
Oh,
And
wow.
now it's been opened up to this really lovely heritage trail, they call it. And it's not quite as staggeringly beautiful as the Napali Coast, which you see behind me, and the Kalalau Trail, which is so famous. But it's absolutely gorgeous, and it's an easy hike. And you don't have to get a permit or a reservation or any of that, like you have to do with so many of the national and state parks these days.
Mhm.
You can just go. You just need to know that it's there.
Mm.
A
Well,
lot of people,
that's you. There's also Waimea. I don't know if I'm pronouncing any of this correctly, but you say that that's kind of like the Grand Canyon of the Pacific, you
yeah,
know?
right. You're going to, basically there's many facets to the island of Kauai, okay? The South Shore is the sunny side where you can always count on beautiful sun-blown days, turquoise water, and that's where the main resorts are. That's, all along the coast there are the resorts. But just an easy day trip from there, you go up into the mountains, and on a narrow winding road that's kind of like a roller coaster ride. It's really kind of fun. It's a good road, but it's kind of, a few
I
butterflies.
somebody
But
else better be driving road.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then there are many pull-offs where you can just gaze over into this canyon, which is very dramatic. There's waterfalls coming down the sides, and it's of many colors, orange and green and variegated colors, and it's quite dramatic. But if you keep going up the hill, they have pullouts, and I think paid pullouts and viewing stations, which I think is worth paying for. It's supporting the park for starters, but you do get a really glorious view. And then on the upper lookout, there are trails, many, many
Mm.
trails that go off along the ridge, which, are very dramatic to hike. But then you go even higher and you go to the K Lodge and the Kokei Museum, which is really worth a stop, not just to get lunch and enjoy really mountain air, because you're out
Wow.
of, it's a completely different microclimate. And then you go even a wee bit higher and you go to the Kalalau Lookout. Now you see the Pali behind me, or the mountains, they
Mhm.
call them the Pali. You see this view from the top side down up there.
Oh, wow.
And it's really gorgeous. It's really worth doing and seeing. And once again, there are trails there. I really highly recommend this app. It's called All Trails.
Oh, yeah. Hmm.
It's a subscription thing, but it's so worth it. There are 91 trails on Kauai. And
Oh, nice.
this app, you can get the trail directions to the trailheads, and reviews as to how difficult, and people have hiking it recently give you a review, which is very, very helpful. Uh, so that is something, and they give you GPS directions. You hit directions, and it will take you to the directions on GPS, which is really great. I think
Hmm.
I think it's like $10 or
Oh,
something for
yeah,
the.
yeah. It's helpful. It
It's
is. I
a
mean, you.
fabulous app, and it's not just Hawaii, it's all over. I used it all over
Mhm.
when I was in Colorado. It was really, really a good little thing to have. So anyway, there are many, many hiking trails, and it's a completely different world up there than down on the coast.
Wow. I
So
love that.
yeah, so yeah, that's Waimea Canyon.
So they
And
call
then,
it the like the little Grand Canyon,
right, it's
basically,
about
of it
10
because of the
miles
can.
long. It's about 10 miles long. It's very dramatic. It is not as dramatic as our Grand Canyon, but they never,
But it's
it's
each one has its thing. I
small
mean,
island.
I went to the Little Grand Canyon in Cosachi National Forest in Louisiana, and I'm like, you got some buttes. That's beautiful.
Mhm.
It was, but it is for each state. They try to kind of do that and go, okay, this is our version of it, but there's no way it's going to be the same as, but there's some reminiscent parts, and it's got to do with geology and hoodoos and all of that good stuff. But what it seems like to me, it's like when you went to Kauai, that you were getting like, botanical gardens. You went off and found out about, uh,
Right. Well,
there's all these
that was
farms and
right, right.
kayaking. Ooh, I love the kayaking.
Yeah. Well, I saved that for my very last day in case I wrecked my body up, But I went to calmer events. Like really a highlight for me when you talk about gardens was I discovered Allerton Garden, which is on the Poipu side of the island on the south shore. And when I was living on the island, the Allertons, John Allerton bought this property in 1938. He bought a whole canyon. It's called the Levi Canyon and
Oh, wow.
beach. And he bought the whole canyon for $50,000
Wow.
in 1938. And he was he inherited his money. His father was an industrialist, and he had an artistic inclination, and he had a partner who was an architect. So he and Robert Allerton and his partner John went around the world gathering tropical plants from around the world. I mean, and statuary. They liked statuary from Rome and Florence. They created what they called garden rooms. And it's just fascinating. It's like a combination of an English garden with a tropical jungle. I mean, it's really, and they created these rooms with these water elements. I really loved the path of the pools where you had sequential waterfalls and pools and, ferns and all sorts of, plants that you can imagine. And these huge towering trees that I guess they were like Amazonian figs. Well, this garden is so dramatic and so charming, they just created this really delightful world. And Steven Spielberg agreed, and he rented the park for 3 months to film Jurassic Park.
That's amazing. And there's ferns in this region, because you also talked about in some of the places there's fern grottos. And whenever we go to a place in parks and we see ferns, Nancy starts going, "It's Jurassic Park. It's my favorite place."
Well, it actually was filmed there, so that was fun. And they still have some dinosaur eggs there for the kids to find in the trees.
Oh, cool. Oh, that's cute. That's really cute.
So it's docent led. You have to go to the visitor center, and it's a 3-mile shuttle into the park. And so this way they're really preserving it. They're not letting it be run over by people who don't have a respect. And the docents are all volunteers, and it's just a really, really wonderful find. And it was happening when I was living on the island, but I had no consciousness of it. It wasn't open to the public until the early 1990s. Robert Allerton passed, now, and he had adopted John so that John could inherit his money and his garden. Isn't that good? I love that.
That's a good way of doing it.
I love that they got around that one.
That's a good one.
That is a good one. I think that was very clever.
Hey, you got to do what you got to do, Good for them.
Yeah, so then John, when he passed, he gave the park to the state. So, they were living there in seclusion for all those years, and I've been back to the islands many times, and this was the first time I have been to that garden, and I thought it was just wonderful. So
well, I remember when you were there too, that you went to a chocolate farm, and I saw you on Facebook, and you're so happy. You're like, I didn't know about this. Like I always got a coffee, so I didn't think about.
Right. You don't think about them growing chocolate in Hawaii. Well, apparently there's more than one chocolate farm in Hawaii, but this is the largest one on Kauai. And it's a combination of a tropical garden. Once again, the Lydgates collected plants from all around the world. And part of the tour takes you through the plants, through the tropical garden. And so you get educated on that front. And then you have these stations where you have the opportunity. They give you tastings of the different fruits that are in the garden, mango and papaya. And
yay.
And then you're educated in the chocolate process, which really is just as extensive as wine. It really is a complicated process that I had no idea. And they give you tastings of different chocolates from around the world so that you can compare the flavors. And when you're done with that, This is a mandatory tour for every chocoholic.
I love that you put that in your article. This is mandatory. I'm like, I'm with you. You don't have to tell me. I'm in. I know,
Really,
but I
because
think, yeah,
you'll come
you want
out
to
of
have to understand it. You want understanding,
you will come out of there with an educated palate, a more discerning palate, and you will not settle
Wow.
for less than organic chocolate after that. So no, it's very cool. It's a lovely tour, and highly recommend it. That is in the foothills behind Kapaha, which is on the east side of the island.
Wow.
And
So you're seeing a lot of what can be grown, and on the natural side, where here you are in parks and nature's doing her thing, and then here's what's being grown, and you're saying that so organic, right? So you're talking about organic chocolate. So are some of the farms and gardens looking at being more
oh,
sustainable that way?
absolutely, definitely on Kauai, they're very into natural gardening and farm to table stuff, and there's a lot of vegans there. And one of the things I learned about breadfruit is
Ooh.
that the vegans are using it for meat substitute.
Oh,
Apparently it can take on the flavor of a hamburger. So they're using breadfruit hamburgers. Now they don't say breadfruit hamburgers, they say vegan burgers. But I thought
wow.
that was kind of interesting.
Huh.
No, they're
Well,
very much
yeah.
into holistic foods and a natural way of living, period, all the way around.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. And I think it's important. Well, being on islands, islands really have to be more, that way, because, it's you are, I mean, I just wish the rest of the world would catch on to islands life, because island people are smart people. They understand the goldfish bowl kind of concept more than, if you're on mainland America, which America is so big, we don't seem to grasp the idea as well sometimes when
We're not
things
growing our own
so
food. We're not growing our own food, which a lot of the people who live on the island are growing a lot of their own fruit, not just because of the health issues, but because it's much more affordable to grow your own food.
right.
It's very expensive to live in the islands.
Mhm.
And so, the combination of that, a lot of people have their own vegetable gardens and so on.
Yeah, and you've got the weather for it. So what was it like in the resorts? Because the one place where you're saying you're talking about how
Oh,
you've got
okay.
your own pool and a little
Oh my
waterfall
God.
for you.
Oh my God.
What's
Okay.
like what?
I was, I have to be honest. I don't normally get to stay in these luxurious
Normally
gigs.
you're camping on the side of a
Well,
river
I'm
on
an
a
outdoor
tent.
adventure travel writer, right? So I river rafting and whatever. But I do love the comfort of a resort, and the Sheraton on the Coconut Coast, which is on the east side, it's like it's a party there all the time because it's kind of cozy.
Okay.
It wraps around the courtyard, and the courtyard has this expansive pool and a bubbling spa right next to it. And then there's the ocean, and along the ocean there's hammocks and chairs. And then right next door, off the pool area, is the Crooked Surf Beach Bar. So you have live
Oh,
music every night.
nice. I love that.
You've got the pool and the spa, the people having fun, and it all shuts down no later than I would say 10 o'clock because it's people come there to sleep,
Yeah.
so they don't let it go on too long. But it's really a happy hour, and it's fun. It is a fun place. And of course, there's a restaurant on site, and they had a nice breakfast option, which was good because then you didn't have to venture out, to start the
Yeah.
day. So anyway, it's only 6 miles from the airport, which was really handy because like I came in at night and early evening, it was still light, but I wasn't really wanting to explore
At night. Yeah.
different roads, right? And even though the island is not that complicated, at dark you can get turned around. So, and Hurricane Clive, I believe it was Clive, had been threatening my flight.
Hmm.
I thought it might be canceled because the hurricane was crossing over the islands as I was flying in. But apparently, it just was very gusty wind when I landed. It was an angry sea, and it was really whipping up, and it was super windy, and it was raining, and I'm going, oh boy, this is going to be fun.
Here we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, all right, you spend your time, you take your chances, but uh, the next morning it broke clear and it was a gorgeous day in paradise. So that's the way it
Wow.
is in the islands. You have to be prepared. I suggest you carry an umbrella with you
Yeah.
because on
Take a rain jacket. Yeah.
any given day, you're going to maybe get a shower or two. But it's not cold rain. It's tropical rain. And, so most
Oh.
people just walk through and don't even bother with an umbrella. But I kind of like a rain jacket or an umbrella. So yeah.
Oh,
So it
that's
was
neat. I mean, you
that
had
was
like,
Sheraton.
uh,
That was the Sheraton on the Kapaha side.
yeah.
Kapaha is kind of a old-fashioned little town there, walking pedestrian town, and you can get smoothies and really good fruit smoothies there, and cool off from the beach day. And it's fun shopping there. Picked up some fun stuff. So yeah. And then on the east side, you got to go to Waimea Falls, Wailua Falls, excuse me. Wailua means Twin Falls.
Okay. Yeah.
The Wailua River is where the Smith Company has been taking people up to the Fern Grotto to get married since 1946. Now, it's a
Wow.
very touristy kind of a thing to do, but you know what? It's a covered boat, and it's nice to get in the shade when you're in the tropics. It's a real relaxed way to get on the river. And they do, they have Hawaiian music. They're dancing and they sing, and I mean, I really enjoyed it. Yeah, a bus full of tourists did join me on that experience, but it's okay. I mean, it was beautiful, and the grotto is, of course, very special. Now, it got in the Aniki thing, all of it was wiped out, but it's
Oh.
all recovered now and come back. The ferns, all of the plants and everything were wiped out of the
Oh,
fern grotto,
wow.
but it has recovered, and marriage ceremonies are performed there daily, just about.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow. So kind of feels like blue Hawaii. What?
yeah, a little bit.
You know,
But like I say, it's kind of it's a really nice, relaxed, easy way to get on the river. Now you can
mm,
also kayak on the river up
mm.
to and do a hike across a river to a waterfall. Frankly, I didn't feel that energetic.
Yeah.
Not that day.
It, yeah. Well, I mean, you fly in from a place, and then it's like different climate changes too, affect your body. And it's like, do what you feel like, and we've done so many interviews on health and travel, and you should listen to your body when your body says, no,
Absolutely.
you
Absolutely.
really,
Well, I needed a restorative holiday, Lisa. That's
oh,
what I
that's nice.
personally needed. I'm older now than before, and I needed the restorative aspects of the island. I swam every day. I
Yeah.
found Lydgate Beach, and Lydgate Beach is just at the mouth of the Wailua River. And the surf around on the eastern side is really generally a little bit too much for me, and I think the average swimmer. I mean, for surfers, who can handle, big waves and
Hmm.
stuff, it's wonderful. They love it. But they have built a rock pool at Lydgate Beach
Oh, I
for
love
for
those.
people like me,
No, but I love rock
for
pools.
kids, and it's like
Oh,
it's wonderful because you have the ocean water, which is
yeah.
so buoyant and so lovely. I don't like swimming in pools because of the chemicals. I like swimming in the ocean,
Mm.
and it was wonderful. I mean, all of the beaches in Hawaii, I want to say that they all have clean facilities, bathrooms, changing rooms, and a lifeguard is important. And this beach
Mhm.
has a lifeguard, and it really, really, I made it a point. I went there several times in my week. I made it a
Just,
point to get
but
back
that's the thing. There's nothing like being the beach does things. I think there's such when you talk about a restorative holiday, I mean, the beach, I know that just the waves make you feel better. It's embryonic being in the water. It makes
right,
you calm. And I think the world could use some doses of beach therapy.
right. And in this particular situation, you can relax totally. You can float on your back and not worry about being knocked over by a wave. And it's fun because the waves are crashing over this
I
rock
love
pool.
that's what I love about rock
And
pools.
I'm going, you can't get me.
Well, we had rock pools in
You
Shelly Beach, and Shelly Beach was like on the East Coast, but like no, Margate, Natal, and there we really got white sharks out there, but they had
Well,
rock
there's
pools,
that. There's that.
great
When I
whites.
was in
Yeah.
Australia, I went to, and I don't want to badmouth Australia, but I was up in the Daintree region at
Mm.
Palm Cove, and there was a lovely beach in front of the hotel, just gorgeous. But unfortunately, there were saltwater sharks
Yeah.
and stinger jellies that will kill you.
Oh, yeah.
So I mean, it's like the thing about Hawaii is benign. There's no snakes. There's no
What?
big mean
There's
creatures.
no snakes?
There's no
So it's
snakes
like New
in
Zealand
Hawaii.
almost. It's like that. Well, yeah, because it's all in that same. Well, this is what I got from your article, and even talking with you today is that you can take this at your own pace. If you want to go
Right.
surf, if you want to
Absolutely.
kayak, if you want to do some
Absolutely.
higher elevation trails and really
Right.
get rugged, you can. Or if you want to
Right.
chill out or mix it up on your holiday, you can here.
Well, you asked me about resorts. Let me say about the Kaloa Landing Resort,
Oh,
which
yeah,
is
yeah.
over in the Poipu area. That's where I was up on the fourth floor with a view of the sea and the sunset, and down below me was the Tranquility Pool that was just for adult use. No kids, thank you much. Look, I love kids. They're darling. It's a survival mechanism. If they weren't so cute, they wouldn't make it, I'm sure. But the thing is, I really relished the idea of this.
Adult time. Yeah.
Yeah. So it had an outdoor spa and a waterfalls going into the pool. So, in the morning I would do the spa and then the swim. I mean, a beautiful way to start your day. I mean, it was real therapeutic. And I really
Yeah.
do feel so much better after my week in the islands because it's nurturing. It's
Mm.
nurturing, it's restorative, it's beautiful. And the secret to youth is to fill your mind with beauty. Well, that's
There
what
you
you do
go. And you still were doing physical activity. It's not
Sure.
just lying on the beach. You know what I mean?
No,
And I think sometimes we all think, oh, I just want to go lay beside the pool and that's that. That's not
no,
necessarily restorative. That's not
no. I
necessarily good.
I made it a point to check out the Heritage Trail. I walked the Heritage Trail, which was really, really nice. And when you get to the access, if you go to the left, you have a real rugged beach. If you go to the right, you have a very civilized path that takes you by the resorts with all of their beautiful gardens and waterfalls. And, it's just nice. So, and then of course, swimming every day. And then the garden tours, were very
Mm.
nice. No, I didn't just lay by the beach, but like I said,
No, no, you got out there,
saved
and
my
that's what I'm saying.
kayaking for the last day. So I
Oh,
saved
that's
the
cool.
Napali Coast, which is behind me, for the last day. Now, because I knew it was rugged, when I lived there, I hiked the Napali Coast Trail 2 miles in and then 2 miles up to the Hanakapi waterfall, and there was a pool beneath the waterfall and you could swim there, and my girlfriend and I would go up there and picnic, and it would be all just ours, and it was just magical. Now today you have to make a reservation. They had a flood
Okay.
2018 on the North Shore,
Mhm.
another natural hazard
Mhm.
catastrophe that took out the road to the trail and these charming little bridges that went over creeks and things with little one lane roads, and very sweet, and one of the best swimming beaches there. So today, but word in the meantime, it's been restored. They built the bridges. The
Awesome.
road is back open. Hanalei Bay is there, and but it's a park, a state park, and you have to make a reservation, and you have to get permits to go into the trail, and you have to take a shuttle from Honolulu into that area. Just like when I went to the Rocky Mountain Park, you had to get a shuttle, you had to make
Right.
reservations and all of that, and there were a ton of people. And that's the way it is there now. Now, if you haven't hiked the Kalalau Trail, I would say yes, it's worth it. But for me, it was, let's just keep that little special memory in our heart and
Yeah.
mind, and take this kayak trip down the Hanalei River and go out into the ocean a little bit on your kayak and then
Ooh,
go into Secret Beach for your snorkeling and your picnic. That sounded like a really good trip to me.
that
So
sounds good.
it was fabulous. It was absolutely fabulous, and it was just at my level. I ha- I don't want to talk about my health. I'm just saying I'm older. Okay, so I have to be careful about what I commit
Mm.
myself to. So it was just wonderful to get out on the river. And in the beginning of the trip, I was at the head of the pack. I was the only one who had their own kayak. Most people go in couples. And by the way, you don't have to have any kayaking experience for this trip.
Cool.
It's just not that tough. So I'm at the head of the pack. I'm like right there with the guide paddling along, feeling no pain. We go out onto the ocean, and then now you're in these waves, and that was like exciting. I'm going, wow, wow, I could be tipped here and it wouldn't be fun. So that was exciting, but managed to just stay behind your guide. And then we did our snorkeling thing and lunch. And then on the way back, we had the ocean current with us. So that was
Oh,
no worry. But then when we went to go back up the river, the winds had picked up, the afternoon
oh,
winds.
wow.
And now I'm paddling in a headwind, and I was falling behind. I kept thinking, oh my God, where's the rescue boat?
Yeah, where's
It
where's the
was fun,
horse?
as was.
Where
So I had to get a second wind, but
well, it has to go with your book where she was riding on dolphins. Where are the dolphins to come and pick you up out of the
really,
kayak?
no one was going to help me. Not my darling guy, very cute guys. They were way ahead of me. Everybody was way ahead of me.
Oh,
So
it's
anyway,
awesome.
but it was wonderful. It was really wonderful. And Hanalei Bay is still absolutely gorgeous and wonderful. And there are easy access, even though there are homes now all along the bay. When I was there were no homes. And of
Yeah.
course, with the filming of The Descendants, the film Clooney was in, sitting at the Tahiti Nui bar. Now that is a raging, I
So a
won't,
lot of movie history, Well,
uh,
it's going to change.
Song was being filmed when I was there. Bali High was filmed there way before, and it's very dramatic. It's still very dramatic. It's still gorgeous. And even though there are a lot more homes. It's not like a resort thing though. They're private homes. It's like wealthy people have bought up
Mhm.
the land. And I went back to Anini Beach, which was where I lived at the end of the road in a pole house on the beach, and literally I don't know, maybe there were half a dozen homes on the Anini Road. And now there are many homes on the bluff, but the beach itself is still quite spectacular, easily accessed, and just lovely to stroll. It's
Mm.
peaceful. There's a reef there that it blocks the waves, so it's tranquil and sweet. It's really lovely still.
That's awesome. Well, that's awesome because, when you go back, like Nancy and I always talk about Kenya and going back, we were looking up our old neighborhood of Karen, in Kenya's outside Nairobi, named after Karen Blixen, out of Africa and all
Uh,
of that. And
right,
we
right.
actually used to live on her land in her servants'
Wow,
quarters, which was turned
really?
into a cottage. And so we looked it up and we're like, oh my God, this is like the Beverly Hills of Kenya. What the
Yeah.
heck?
Well, that's
We need Jeff Bezos money to go move there.
well,
I'm like, what happened?
that's the
So
North Shore. The North Shore has been bought up by super wealthy people.
you just have to remember that you're so lucky to be where you are when you are.
Well,
And
I'm
sometimes we
blessed.
forget that. You know
I
what I
am
mean?
so blessed that I was there.
Yeah.
What I did when I was 28 years old was I dropped out of society and landed on the North Shore of Kauai, and I lived there for 1 year. And it was the most transformative, blissful year of my life. And I've had a lot of good years, but it was so special. At that time, not just for me, but the island itself was going through a very special time.
Mm.
Taylor's Camp was happening there, which was a colony of hippies who were living in tree houses.
Cool.
It was Elizabeth Taylor's brother gave them the land to put their tree houses up in.
Didn't you write about this?
I did.
I
I
think,
wrote about
yeah,
Bobo. Bobo lived
yeah.
in a tree house, and she swam. You see that Napali Coast behind me? She would
Hmm.
swim the Napali Coast by herself. And she was the one who got me into thinking, about my main character having a friendship with a dolphin in Wainani,
Hmm.
because she would play with the dolphins and they would come with her and gone
That's
along
it.
with
Wainani.
her.
Everyone has to read Wainani.
Oh, thank you, dear.
Did you think about that when you were there? Like, did you kind of reflect on Wainani as well?
Yeah, that's where the seed was planted. I didn't know it at the time, but that was where the seed for my novel was planted. And all these experiences, like my interview with Bobo, and how it was for her to swim those long distance swims by herself and just be befriended by
Mhm.
dolphins. I mean, it stuck with me that that was a real thing that people do.
Yeah.
And of course,
And listen, Wainani, man, and then there's the lava tubes and then there's like, oh, there's a little romance. Linda likes to throw a lot of romance in her books. And she does.
what's life without romance, Lisa?
Hey, no, it's true. And really, because I'll never forget reading Wainani and I'll come running out to Nancy. Nancy, you should read what Linda just wrote. I'm like, Linda,
Uh, well, I got.
it's not over the top, but I just go, you just did an important travel interview. And now I'm going, whoo, she's looking at landscapes of where, Nookie can happen around the next rock.
Well, I got in trouble, for Embrace of the Wild, and I mention it because that first third of that
Oh,
book
Isabella Bird. Yeah,
is set in the islands. But I got taken.
that's right. Yeah.
Because I allowed, Isabella Bird, a Victorian age explorer, to have a sexual experience with Rocky Mountain Jim, and an English
Oh,
woman.
come on. Who doesn't want to hang out with Rocky Mountain Jim, at
Right.
least for one
So
night? Come on.
an English woman who also wrote about Isabella said, "Oh, with her Victorian background, she would have kept her stays in place."
That's not true.
I said, "No,
Not,
I don't believe that.
I
I
don't know,
don't believe
because not
that at all.
everyone would have.
I believe
She
a
was a free
40-year-old
spirit. And
40-year-old virgin would have had."
Priscilla Thew did the same thing. I mean, she's the one who rode around on her horse, and that's why Sequoia National Park is as big as it is. She inspired Ansel Adams, and here she was in the 30s and 40s on horseback on her own in the wilderness in the Sierra Nevadas. And I'm like, she had her husband and literally and and had a good time. And she did everything you weren't supposed to. You were supposed to keep your skirts this way, and there's always a percentage of women who said no, and that's why we are able to do what we do now. So it not you
Right,
cannot look at
right.
Karen Blixen in Africa. Hell no, it didn't. It just didn't work that way. Not every single woman in the Victorian era will do that. There were naughty women all throughout history.
Right. There's always been love
There's
affairs.
all a
Right,
free spirited women who
right,
know who they are and
right.
take chances. And I think, like with Isabella Bird, because of her injuries, it's like Frida Kahlo, right? Same kind of
Right.
time frame. Frida
She
Kahlo, when
was
you go
very
through some
liberated. She was
that,
extremely liberated.
yeah,
She experienced so much pain, and she said, "You know what? Nobody's going to stop me from enjoying life.
exactly.
I've made it through this, and it was horrible what happened to her, when she
Yeah.
was young." So, well,
So
we should get back to Hawaii.
I know. And speaking of that, in closing, I want to say, would you say, because I know you do a lot of solo travel as a woman, and then you do guided trips as well, which is good. Like if you're going out with a kayaking and things like
Right.
that. So for single women traveling, would this be a good place to go if you want an
Oh,
adventure on your own?
absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm.
It's perfectly safe. Of course, you want to keep a consciousness of, you know, uh,
Anywhere. Yeah.
anywhere that you want to be sensitive to, people going on in the area. I mean, when I was at the beach and I was by myself, I took my little beach bag and I put it over. I said to the lifeguard, "Can I put my stuff here?" Now, I don't know that there's a lot of thievery or petty thievery, but that's everywhere.
Yep.
And he said, "Absolutely sure. Would you like to put it over here closer to me?" I mean, I think you can travel safely solo, but have a consciousness that the world there's things going on in the world all over the place.
Mhm. Exactly. And swimming, that's always been a problem. Like, do you dig your your bag into a hole somewhere.
Right. What are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Because when you're traveling, you have to have your car keys and your wallet or whatever. I mean, you have
your
to have
phone.
something, your phone. So yeah. So yeah, I didn't want to ask a stranger, but a lifeguard, yes.
Yeah,
Even when I'm here
absolutely.
in California, by the way, when I go swimming, I put my bag. I say to someone who's I know is sitting there for a while, and I say, "Do you mind if I put my stuff by you while
Yep,
I take
yeah.
my swim?" I mean, I just have a consciousness for the
And
fact
don't
that,
take 10 years on your swim either. You have to be
right,
conscious of them.
right.
Yeah.
And in terms of safety, if you do the Napali Coast Trail, I want you to go onto the park site and they have a safety video there. And it alerts you to the fact that many people drown.
Hmm.
They can have, once again, natural disasters. They can have flash floods. These mountains at the top are the wettest spot in the world. They have
Wow.
tremendous
Yeah.
amount of rain there. And if they have a rainstorm and it causes flash floods down below, on this trail, you are crossing a river. Okay.
Yeah.
And people, silly people, aren't wearing the proper kind of shoes, aren't carrying enough water, doing the thing. And people do get hurt and they do drown. And all these things happen. Another one is the Queen's Bath. It's on Kauai. It's a little further up the coast from here. And it's famous, it's a beautiful place. And a lot of tourists want to go there. Well, unfortunately, rogue waves have come up and taken people out of that rock
Oh,
circle that's called the Queen's Bath. And the Hawaiians, the local people, warn people. They say, don't go there. It can be very, dangerous. But they do. And so people do get hurt. Why? Because they're not paying attention. And as I say, this safety video, if you are going on that trail, you definitely want to watch this safety video. It's just that
yeah.
simple.
I think, but because it ruins your, I mean, you could die, number one, but it's the same. I mean, I say that whenever we talk about the national park sites and stuff, I always say go there because like avalanches can happen anywhere. Anything can happen anywhere with the weather. And I, lived in the Southwest for so long. And people, I remember a friend, hanging out with us and we were going to drive to Vegas and we were out in Joshua Tree area when we lived there. And I said, no, monsoon's coming. We need to drive. He's like, look, it's a completely blue sky. There's no
Yeah,
monsoon. I
no,
said,
it can
it's
change
coming.
very fast.
And when it came, we were driving. I finally got his butt in the car. I'm like, get in the car. And we're driving through the back roads of the Mojave Preserve. Talk about fires. There's another one. It's devastating to me, but we're driving and you could see this monsoon wave. It was like the ocean going across the desert. And I'd never seen it in that view. And he just looked at me and he was the quietest. I mean, he's quiet. I mean, he talks more than me, which he wins awards for. And he went quiet. All of us went quiet and we all looked at each other and did oh, no, we're going down. And it was freaky because it came fast and you just saw it like this ocean wave
Well,
and you've
we're all
got to know, be
right.
prepared.
Right. We're all dealing in the world of climate change, which is bringing all this radical weather to us. And I think sunstroke is a real serious thing. I mean, when I hiked in Colorado, I was silly. It was hotter there, the altitude, the whole thing, and my
Hmm.
hands were trembling, but I wouldn't stop. Fortunately, I survived, right? But it was stupid. And I'm older now. I keep saying that I'm older,
Yeah.
but there is some wisdom that comes with age because
Well,
I put
I've also
myself
said,
into precarious places.
yeah, I've also learned if take a hat if you can, but if you take extra water with you, and I'm seeing the National Park
Yeah,
Service now doing trail guides going, how many things of water you need per trail. So like here's a like little infographics, this trail, 1 jug of water, like your actual water containers, this many. This is how many you need to give people like an insight of what they need. And I think that's brilliant because we're so visual. But if you take like a cloth with you and you can, if you're starting to go down with heat, always carry a soda if you can for electrolytes
right,
and sugar. But if you have a cloth and you have water and you can cool yourself off with that cloth on your back of your neck and on the top of your head, or
right.
pour it really
I have
obviously get into
those.
shade
Yeah, I'm going
helps.
to give you when for your show notes here. I'll give you a link to the 5 safest beaches on Kauai,
Oh,
which
cool.
I
That's
think would
great.
be nice for people to have.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Um,
Yeah, no,
Honolulu, Honolulu Bay is definitely safe for swimming, and that's, on the north shore. And then on the east side is the Lydgate Beach that I mentioned. And then on the south shore is Poipu. But I also found one on the way to Allerton Gardens. I noticed a lot of local people having a picnic at this beach park, and children playing in this marina. And I went, that looks safe enough for me. So I stopped there on the way back. And as I say, they always have restrooms and changing areas and so on. Took a dip. It was so lovely, and I was laying on the sand afterwards, resting up, and a giant seal, I mean, a huge seal came galumphing up next door to me, like right next door to me, like blowing his nose at me,
like, hello.
Yeah, I went, oh my God, I wonder what else was in there.
That's so funny. He's just like, oh, that looks like a good spot. I'll go hang out with her.
Yeah,
That's
really.
cool.
So it was me and a couple of yachts and this gigantic seal. And of
Oh,
course,
that's awesome.
somebody told me there were turtles in there. They're doing a big thing to save the turtles. And so there are a lot of turtles because they are protecting them.
That's awesome. It sounds like you had a wonderful time. Before you
I
go,
did.
I want to know favorite meal that you had there. Like, if you're going to give a taste of Hawaii, what would it be?
Well, at the Hola Hola Grill, which is the restaurant that's in the Kaloa Landing Resort, I had their version of a poke bowl, and it was really, really delicious with all sorts of fusion of different flavors, not just, tuna. Poke is tuna. Um, and I really, really enjoyed that. Plus they had, but I also loved this Japanese. I didn't tell you about the Kaloa, Old Town Kaloa, which is also very close to the landing. And there they had, lots of little restaurants and places, but they had a Japanese grocery store where you could get all the different fruits, dragon fruit and papaya.
Oh, I
and
love dragon
all of
fruit.
that. And they had teriyaki chicken and things like that you could take to the beach, because I like to take a picnic to the beach. I always like to have, snacks for the beach. So that was very cool. And they had the best ice cream I've ever tasted in the world. So
Oh man, it sounds like you had a good time. I love this. I love it.
I did. I'm so grateful that I was able to go. And as I say, I feel like my old self. I have to admit I was a little, what? I'd been dealing with some health issues. So I'm free now again. I feel like my old me again.
Oh, that's awesome. So that's true rejuvenation. Yeah.
That's right. So
that's awesome. Everyone, again, Linda's article is up on nationalparktraveling.com. I'll link it from the show notes and add also the link she says about the safe beaches to that. You can also go to gohawaii.com. On there, you'll find a section for Kauai, and that's Kauai. I'll also link that in the show notes. And also keep up with Linda at lostangeladventures.com, and her also for her author novels, go to lindaballouauthor.com. Of course, we had to touch on Wainani and, Embrace the Wild, Isabella Bird. It all goes there. So thank you so much for joining us. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you, Lisa. Really appreciate it.
And everyone, thank you for listening to, aloha. Thank you, everyone, for listening here on Big Blend Radio. Keep up with us at bigblendradio.com.
Okay.